And we're live. Good morning,
Hey
everybody.
guys. Good morning, good
I
morning, good morning.
am good morning, good morning. I am Josh Manley of CADClass.org. Really looking forward to having a chat with Mr. Sugden over here. Jake, you want to introduce
Hey guys,
yourself?
how's it going?
So Jake and I wrote the book Mastering Fusion 360. We run the website CADClass.org, as I said in the beginning. And we wanted to have a free-form discussion about some of the topics that come up in our everyday discussions with other business owners, other makers, other people in our universe of 3D printing, CAD modeling, and business. So what we're really looking forward to, this is a little bit of a different format for us, so we'll get this better and better over time, but we're looking forward to interacting with the chat, meeting some of you all, getting used to this brand new format for us, and just kind of answering questions and having a free-form discussion. So we hope that we can continue to bring value in this new medium to you all, and it will definitely be better if when you join us, you interact in the chat. So if at any point you have something to say, a comment, something that you notice about what we're saying, doing, or anything like that, feel free to give us a comment.
Or if you just hate it, that's fine as well.
Yeah, disliking is fine. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine as well.
Yeah, so go ahead.
All right, so I'm going to start off because I imagine quite a few people that are signing on, they may know about CAD class or the CAD class book. They may have seen it on somewhere on Reddit, somewhere around, but they actually don't know who we are. We don't know how we met. So I want to start this off as a very introductory thing. So I want you to just give us just a little introduction on who Josh Manley really is.
Oh man, then we had to start that deep. Who I really am.
Who you really are.
Oh, well, I guess it depends on who I'm talking to. But no, I
think you should do how we met because that's kind of a.
Let's do how we met. I like that a lot. Yeah,
that's way better.
We met. Has it been like 8 years ago now?
I think it's been 7 or 8 years. Yeah.
Do you
been
remember
a ridiculously long time?
Do you remember the very first time that we met?
I think so. Yeah, yeah. So Josh and I met when we were both working at Urban Workshop, which is I think it's the largest makerspace in North America. That's down in Costa Mesa, California. Is it now?
No.
Or it's the third largest?
No, I'm from Ohio, so I can tell you there's a 60,000 square foot makerspace there.
Oh yeah,
they've got them doubled.
Damn.
No, I think it was in northern, or at least in Southern California, it definitely is the largest makerspace.
Oh yeah, by a mile.
In Northern California, there's another one too, though. There's the Crucible, which I don't know if maybe it's a makerspace, maybe it's not, but the Crucible as well in North America. So
that's in San Francisco. Yeah,
in Oakland.
I think it's in San Francisco. Oh, it's in Oakland. Yeah. I was actually rewatching old Mythbusters episodes recently because I just realized that, oh my gosh, they're on HBO. I'm going to watch all of them. And they actually build some of the projects. They were like, oh, we're going to be here doing some blacksmithing in the Crucible. I'm like, no way.
Wait,
I know those guys.
I didn't know they did that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. A really, really early episode they did. They said, oh, we're going to be testing like a wooden cannon. So they hollowed out a log with like a spoon drill. And then to have like a whole blacksmithing community, like wrap metal bands around it and get into all that. And they were like, yeah, we're here at the Crucible and we're here with the owner, whatever his name is, Chris. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love those guys. So that's amazing. Blast from the past. Anyway, but so I first started there just as a shop tech. So going around fixing machines, fixing things that members broke, which is pretty often. But also kind of working with different teachers to see if they had any ideas or anything that they that I could actually help improve their whole system, how they taught, the materials that they needed, order of operations, any of that stuff. And I eventually kind of got approached and they said, "Hey, would you like to do some teaching of yourself?" And I was like, "No, that sounds terrible." And they said, "Well, what about teaching 16 kids how to use a table saw?" I said, even more, no, that sounds awful. And they said, well, give it a go. And I said, all right. So I started teaching a bunch of people about the metalworking, woodworking, welding, 3D printing, all that good stuff. And it got very, very addictive. I've always loved telling people about fun facts and learning things in book. And so kind of spreading the knowledge, spreading the love has always been a big, big, big passion for me.
Fun fact.
Fun fact.
Yeah. Jake loves fun facts. Fun fact is that Jake loves fun facts. You're
Yeah,
gonna get a lot of fun facts in these episodes.
there's gonna be too many fun facts here. I, I actually thought about writing a book about fun facts when I was in high school, but then that went nowhere.
They were fun to you.
Um, yeah. And so eventually started teaching kids, started teaching adults. That was really, really fun. And then Mr. Josh Manley walked in the door and said, "Hey, I want to do that as well."
Yeah.
I'll pass it. I'll pass it on to you. See
Yeah.
where the story
So,
comes for
what
you.
I'm trying to figure out is I actually don't remember the very first meeting that we had. I don't remember it. I
How
know.
dare you?
I know. Do you remember the very first encounter?
No.
I'm like, it's such a blur. I think for context for the audience, it's such a blur because Jake and I didn't have any real maker skills. I had done some basic things, but I hadn't done a ton of things. But I was super passionate about learning about it. And then Jake, you had a maker background, but you had done woodworking and then a couple of other disciplines. But really, that was about it. And then we showed up to a workshop and we had to teach classes in all of these different disciplines. And I think very quickly we realized, both of us realized we were way over our heads. And so we had to study all night and all day and make notes on things that we're going to have to teach the next day. So the fact that neither of us remembers the first encounter is not surprising because we had 5
No.
billion things on our plate. We had to
Yeah.
remember everything. It was insane. I also,
Mhm.
I mean, I think there was something I'm curious if you feel this way too, but I felt when I first started and throughout the duration of that program that it was the most intense learning experience of my life.
Oh, by a mile. It was trial by fire to a certain degree. Where they said, "Hey, tomorrow or next week, you're going to be teaching a class about X, Y, and Z," and it was less, or to me, I was like, "What? Why would you do this to me? Why wouldn't you give me more time?" And then as I kind of did it, it was like, okay, well, it's more about them assessing both you and I and seeing that we're both educators, that we can both teach people how to do it. What much who's good at teaching, then basically teach them making.
Wait, Jake, can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
You are cutting out. I don't know if it's just on my stream or if it's on yours too.
no,
That's weird. It's cutting out really badly on my side of things. In the chat, can you hear Jake? Just let us know if you can hear Jake. I'm going to sign in to see if there's actually, there's a couple people in here right now. If you're in here watching this stream, can you, actually, and somebody commented as well. The link you guys
and
tweeted
so
last
the
night.
link that we tweeted out last night was broken. It was.
Okay. So Byron says it is cutting out. Okay. We're new to this. So thank you, Maple
We're
Leaf Maker, for
totally new
stopping
to
by.
this.
Jake, your quality just went down the drain.
No.
Is your internet connection funny? So anyways, I see Maple
Not
Leaf
that I know
Makers
of.
in here. Thanks for stopping by, Maple Leaf Makers. And Byron, yeah, he's back but fuzzy. Byron says you're back but fuzzy. Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing, guys. So thanks for coming. Thanks for showing up, by the way.
We will fix
Pause
this
the
by
torrent.
next week. Don't worry.
Maple Leaf Maker says pause the torrents. Yeah, and
Yeah.
so
Oh no.
yeah, we're complete rookies here. This is our first live stream. We figured we'd show up and everything would be broken, and we were right. So
Yeah.
thanks,
Expect the
Byron
worst.
Barker and Maple Leaf Makers for being here. That's awesome.
Thank
Totally
you so
cool.
much.
And we'll try to sort these issues out as they come. So it's weird that we're not seeing comments. Oh, that's the private chat.
Comments.
Oh, I'm on the.
Yeah.
There we
You're on the
go.
wrong side, dude.
I'm on the wrong.
Can you tell that we're really terrible at this? Can you tell?
Wait. So okay. So let's go back. So you were in the middle of. We were talking about this being the most intense learning experience of our lives, and then it went fuzzy.
Yes. So we realized very quickly that it's much easier to get someone who is really good at teaching and then say, I need you to learn everything about this specific brand of 3D printers, rather than getting a person who is a 3D printing wizard and saying, I need you to teach a class. That's impossible. That is so much harder to do. And we learned this time and time and time again. And so our trial by fire was essentially our company saying, I believe that you can learn absolutely everything that a beginner needs to learn very, very quickly. And I'm going to put you into a workshop and I'm going to make sure that you spend days and days and days learning all of these machines as intensely as possible, and then writing a curriculum and then having you guys do that. And it was clunky at the beginning, just like this. And then as years went by, we just started building up skill set, and now we have between us decades of experience in all different fields, but to a very, very strange degree. We meet people all the time who say, "Oh, I've been doing woodworking for 40 years." It's like, well, that's amazing. And
That's a
then
long
I have to
time.
teach them how to use a bandsaw so they get security cleared or safety cleared for everything. So that was ridiculous. But so now in all of our content that we produce, we're always trying to reach out to as many different fields as possible. What we've kind of found from the CAD universe is that obviously you want to have a certain amount of tangibility with anything. Making cool projects is cool. But then actually sticking to one field, saying, "Oh, I'm the woodworking CAD guy," gets stale very, very quickly. And so we're always wanting to make as many different types of fields of makering as possible, and then pushing that or
Fields of
mixing that with
makering, yeah.
CAD
Fields of
makering.
makering. We're pros in here. Fields of makering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then pushing that into CAD as much as possible. So
Yeah.
I've got a big background in metalworking, and so all of my favorite projects are saying, well, I made something cool. How do I deconstruct that and teach and using it as a teaching mechanism for someone to learn CAD as well as possible?
Yeah, because I mean,
Um,
when we met, we had entered a program that was a little bit. It had started. We had like some of the classes had been taught, but basically none. It was compared to what it is now. There was maybe 5 or 10 classes, and they were underdeveloped. And so we came into a program that had basically no development and exploding interest from kids. And when we met, both of us were every single night drinking from a fire hose. You were
Yeah.
reading about welding. I was reading about welding. We're learning from each other about what to do and how it's going. And it's, yeah, makering. Byron says makering. You've heard it here. We heard it here first.
Good.
Yeah, we're going to make all kinds of words up, especially because, all right, so what you don't know in the
I
chat,
find I make up words all the time. I
what
don't
you
know why
don't know
more
in the
people don't
chat
do it.
is that this not only is this our first stream, but I just got home 10 minutes ago from a trip to Alaska and I haven't slept
Yeah.
for 2 days. So I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure I'm just going to make stuff up during the stream. So maybe the next one will be normal. But
And
yeah,
I've been doing work for 48 hours straight, so
exactly.
I'm running on fumes.
Fumes. So this, this is as low quality as it gets. So thanks again for being
Oh
here.
yeah.
So we meet. I have no idea. I was trying to think even what was the first encounter that I can remember. Maybe the welding one, actually. We told that story a couple of times where we were told that we are going to teach a group of 30 to 40 students the next day how to weld. And I had welded once in my life and you had never welded.
I'd never welded before in my life.
That is the first experience that I remember you and I in the same classroom kind of meeting. Right, with the conditions, it's like what the heck is even going on here? This is insane, right? So you and I have to miraculously teach 30 students how to weld without knowing how to do it. And then
Mhm.
the most important thing is, how do we prevent people from going blind and burning themselves? And what if we set the building on fire? So again,
Yeah.
so the fact that we don't remember those initial encounters is not surprising to me. That the stress level at that time was huge. But again, it was one of the most important. It was probably the most important learning experience of my life. I've
I
never
would agree.
learned
Yeah.
faster. I've never learned more. And I've never come out of something having gained a skill set so quickly.
Yeah.
It was like born of that stress. And I'm thankful now, like as you were saying, thankful now that we can actually incorporate all of those learnings and skills into what we do. And it makes doing stuff like this, where it is stressful the first time that we ever do it, but it makes doing stuff like this seem weak
Seem
in
like
comparison. When you have a 10-year-old on a table saw and they can cut their finger off, and you have to be 100% on it so that they don't cut their finger off. Like, this is
Mhm.
easy. I can
Oh
talk
yeah.
I can talk to YouTube and a couple people on here all day, but having to prevent 10-year-olds from cutting their fingers off, that was insane. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was
And
that work.
that was a regular thing that we had to do every single day. That was
Oh,
bizarre.
every day in, day out, and sometimes 2, 3 classes a day. We'd have wood in the
Mhm.
morning and metal in the afternoon and welding in the evening. you'd be teaching adults and kids. I focus mainly on the youth program. We that was crazy. That was a crazy learn. So
So much fun.
that was the origin of our meeting, and then the origin of CAD class. I have what I think is the origin of CAD class, but I'm curious. What do you think the origin of CAD class?
The origin of CADClass is us teaching CAD for years and people getting completely frustrated and uninterested. Me coming from an engineering background where I really disliked how CAD was taught. It was very boring. It was over academic and it had very little creativity and customability put into it. And we started CAD class as an affront to that at every single point, saying, hey, here's a program that has as much functionality as you would find in an academic environment, but it's free to students, free to educators, free to startup companies, free to hobbyists, and it's a tool, or it tends to be the stopping block in creativity. If people go, "Hey, I just bought my first 3D printer, or my first CNC, or my first laser," and they go, "Okay, well, you have to learn CAD now," and it is a fun vacuum. It sucks all of the
Oh,
enjoyment out of your
oh.
project. And I'm like, no, I'm going to flip the script.
So
I'm going to make you.
that's the second Jakeism today. I just want to say that, right? So we've got a fun vacuum,
It is
right?
a fun vacuum.
We've got
Yeah.
makering and a
Or
fun
it
vacuum.
used to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
And with that, we said, okay, well, let's try and make this as enjoyable and as fun as possible. Because if you don't have that engagement with CAD, then you're screwed. Then there's no point in teaching anyone anything. It's in the same way that if you want to get into woodworking or metal lathing or CNC milling, and someone says, whoa, 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 the first thing we're going to make is a cube. Like, I recognize the
Yeah.
importance. I really do. I recognize starting small is important, and you learn the most and you get the fundamentals. That's fantastic, but there's no creativity in that whatsoever. You can absolutely learn the fundamentals of CNC milling by making a really fun, simple project, you know? And
Totally.
the person will be more engaged with it. And this is something that Josh and I kind of just figured out over
Pioneers.
years where
We're pioneers. Yeah, we
we
definitely.
came into classes, at least, where the projects were fantastically underwhelming, and we took the same learning qualities and the same learning topics, and we just made it into a significantly more fun project, and that just expedited how good people were learning and the projects that they were making. The quality wise, it just went up massively. And so what we found when going into CAD is that we can apply that philosophy entirely directly without changing a single thing.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
So okay. So you think it's funny because the origin you say is we were frustrated with the level of CAD education the whole time.
So we did it ourselves.
I would actually say I wasn't all that impressed with CAD. I didn't even have CAD on my mind for the first 3 years of the workshop. It was something that I had to do.
Mhm.
It wasn't something that I looked forward to doing because every time we
Yeah,
walked in and tried to teach the kids, it was horrible and boring and they hated it. And
frustrating.
then by extension, you felt like they hated you. It's like
Yes.
these
Yep.
kids hate me. It was hard to it's like that's one of the funny things I think
Mhm.
about teaching is when you're teaching something, you have a curriculum and you're told you have to give this. And maybe this is like a teacher philosophy thing here. If the curriculum is boring and you can't jazz it up and you have to just do what you're told to do this, you end up teaching what feels like a horrible class and then internalizing the idea that you're a bad teacher.
Yes.
And then
My
the students project that too. They're like, well, this guy
uh
must not know. This
oh,
is
they're ruthless.
clearly terrible. So I
My-
wonder, CAD wasn't even on my mind for the first 3 years because I wanted to avoid it. Like
Mhm.
I'm here to make stuff, right? And that was actually, I think, what the kids did too. But then there was a distinct moment when that changed. Do you remember the distinct moment that
No, I
changed?
don't.
For me, okay, so for me, the distinct moment was COVID,
Yeah. Yeah.
where we switched. We had suddenly A, you couldn't really do making in person, and
No.
B, we had started
Workshops
to
across the
experiment.
world were closed down.
We had started to experiment with because this class was so bad for so long. You and I had started to experiment with other ways to teach it. And the one thing
Mhm.
that we did that I think absolutely changed the game was we put a 3D printer in the classroom.
Yeah.
We said, instead of having 3D printing be something that happens like, over there, what if it happens right here in the classroom? And we put a 3D printer in the classroom This was one of
And you
the
can
early
see it
aha.
and touch it.
This was one of the early aha moments for me. It was like prior to that class with a 3D printer in there, it was always boring and terrible and not tangible. And the kids came to make
Yeah.
tangible things. And frankly, I'm a man of feedback. I like to make tangible things as well.
Yeah.
So I distinctly remember that changing the way I viewed CAD education. I wouldn't say that
Mhm.
that was the birth of our company, but that was definitely an early seed of an idea is, hey, tangibility matters a lot. And the thing that makes tangibility with learning CAD absolutely obvious is 3D printing.
Mhm.
So that was to me, that was a seed. The actual company, though, I would say started with a dust collection adapter.
It did, yeah. So when we were both working with kids, we were doing obviously a lot of woodworking, big projects. Um, Anytime you're working with woodworking, dust is everywhere and it gets in your lungs and it makes a mess and it's a pain in the ass to clean up. And so obviously you have a little shop vac and you plug it into everything, suck away all the dust. That's fine. The annoying thing is that there is no industry standard at all between any tools, any brands about, well, how big is that orifice that then a vacuum can plug into? Because it changes the size and the depth and the taper based, and then any fittings on the outside based on the brand if you're working with DeWalt or Ryobi. And then even within that, if you have something like a circular saw, okay, that's kind of small. But then you also have a jigsaw or a router. The same tools in the same company can't even agree on what size. And so you end up with all of these different solutions that basically don't work. And people just say, well, I'm just going to wrap a bunch of duct tape around it, and that's fine. And that works once, and it is a massive pain in the ass, and everybody is unhappy. And so Josh basically ran into me and he said, Jake, I need you to 3D print a little adapter between a hose and this table saw. Here's the side, here's the outer diameter of this, here's the outer diameter of that. Go. And I think I whipped up in what, like half an hour? If
Less,
that?
20 minutes.
Less. Because it's a super simple thing. It's
Two
like
circles, an
it's a
extrusion
little
between
bit
the
of an S
two.
shape.
We have CAD
Yeah.
modelers in here. Yeah, two circles
Yeah.
and a connection between the two in a wavy shape. That's
Mhm.
kind of it.
And then 3D printing took 2 hours or so. And then
Filament,
you
maybe
plug it
20
in and you
cents,
go,
20 cents worth of filament,
mhm. And then you
20
go,
cents
oh
worth
my
of
god, it
filament,
works.
20 minutes of design, and 2 hours of 3D printing. And we plug it in and
Yeah,
it works. We
and it
plug it
works
in and it
perfect.
works. So I mean, that to me was because when we started thinking about this kind of stuff and when we started our partnership, right, I wasn't actually thinking about anything related to CAD being something we would do. I was
Mm.
just starting to realize, hey, 3D printing has utility and CAD is one of the tools necessary to get us there. And you were way better at CAD than I was and still are way. Now you're infinitely better at CAD than I am. But
Thank you very much.
uh, yeah, the CAD portion to me kind of slowly came later. The 3D, the adapter thing. Do you remember we considered starting an adapter business
Oh yeah, because
because we
those
sold that.
we're tool guys, and they go, okay, well, we could actually make this gigantic automated spreadsheet where people type in their tool, type in their dust collector, and then it magics up a little thing. It sends it to 3D printers automatically, and then we can just ship it off. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is actually very doable and really profitable, to be honest. Because some of these adapters, they can go for 20, 25 bucks, 30 bucks, depending on the weirdness of the tool. And that's pretty easy to actually automate. And then you go, okay, well, we're getting like 5 sales per day. And then you go, oh, that's kind of significant. And
Yeah.
that's with me doing basically no work. We were able to run this a very small 3D printer farm with what, 3 3D printers,
Hmm.
while also having a full-time job.
Like
It's
easily,
like, oh
not
my
just
god,
wow. I think we were spending more than an hour a week, maybe 2 hours a
if
week.
that,
Basically,
if
no
that.
time at all. Just hey, we sold an adapter. We already made this thing. Just go ahead and ship it and print it. That was the birth of the company. I think
Mhm,
that was the real, at least in terms of both of us having the same epiphany at the same time.
mhm.
I think that was the pivotal moment there, where it's like, oh,
And
we can do this as we do other things. And
yeah.
it's not going to affect our personal lives. It's not going to affect our work lives. That's nice.
Mhm. And I want to stay on this for a little bit because what we're running into now is that we are putting so little effort into developing new 3D printable products and posting it and advertising it that basically we get maybe what 3 sales a month. We have maybe 10 or 12 things on eBay pages or Etsy pages, and we're putting very little work, and it's still making a couple bucks here and there, but not really that much. But what
Yeah.
it is, so for example, we just sold an adapter yesterday.
Yep.
I already have the file saved, 3D print it, bag it up, chuck a shipping label on it, and it's out the door. And I think we sold that for like $20. Go, all right, that's cool. I think we make $17 profit off of that
No, I
after
think that's
shipping.
shipping. So there's okay. So on a $20 3D print, it might cost us
The
25
material's
cents
about a
plastic,
quarter.
$4 or so to ship it, maybe
Mm.
$5 to ship it. So you're at about 15, and then eBay takes a cut, and then the payment processor takes a cut. I think when you really look at it, we probably make about $10 on a $20 product
Oh,
on eBay.
all right.
So 10,
I mean,
$10 to put it.
yeah, for something that is a machine is making it for you,
Plus the
and
packaging, plus the label maker, plus all the things
yeah,
that go into it. But yeah, probably with all of that, I think probably $10.
yeah, it's not too bad. And what it kind of what it's come down to recently is you're going, okay, well, there's so many different parts to our business now that the 3D printing sector is so minimal and it's doing so little revenue that there's really no point in kicking it up. And what we're talking about this morning is that Josh is now saying, I think we should just delete the eBay page because it's a distraction. And I'm saying, well, I like having a little bit of variety in our business. I kind of like using our 3D printers and making stuff, and just having that as even a little bit of revenue coming in. It's not bad, And I think one of the arguments that we can have today is saying if you have many different branches of your businesses, and one of them is producing very little revenue, but also taking a very small amount of time, then do you completely nix it out of the business, or is it something that you hold on to? And
Yeah,
I want you to go first.
yeah. I was gonna say, I went. This is why. So first off, this is like I'm getting excited now. So this is why we wanted to do this podcast. Like at least this is one of the reasons I have for doing this is I want to talk about the decisions that we make and why we make them, and have a real. And by the way, in the chat, if you guys want to hear us talk about something, please put it in there. We'd also love to know where you're calling in from and who you
Yeah.
are. So I can see Maple Leaf Makers there, but. Uh, the
Maybe he's
business
Canadian.
of
Who knows?
yeah, it's
I've
very
got
hard
a
to tell.
hunch.
Very
I've got
hard
a
to
hunch.
yeah. The philosophy behind here's I think my point. I care a lot about how I spend my time. And we got Iron Arms from Germany.
Hello, hello.
Welcome, welcome. Where in Germany? I'm curious. I haven't been to Germany yet, but I would love to go.
I've been to Germany a bunch of times. I had some family that lived there for a little
Ah,
bit, so I went to Hamburg, which is this just unbelievably beautiful, old-fashioned Germanic town. Cobblestones, lovely wooden architecture, just gorgeous. I want to go back there so badly.
awesome. So, this idea that it doesn't take much time to make it. It's not difficult. It's something that can run more or less autonomously. To me, still though, what it does is it takes some of your attention and diverts it temporarily. So you go from focused on a specific task. Like I'm a big ideas kind of guy. I feel like probably the most important thing in business is not doing all the little things in the business. It's not making all the little decisions that every business is going to have to make every single day. It's making sure that you point the needle to the right destination. If we're not able to focus all of our energy and attention on pointing the needle to the destination, and then we're able to channel the energy towards building something that's substantial in the way that we want it to be, all those little micro distractions add up, and you never actually have an opportunity to figure out where you're going. And so you might make $10, $20, $30. And this gets really interesting, I think, as we scale our business, is we're going to have to make more and more decisions exactly like this. Is what's working, but it's not working well enough, or it's not getting us to where we want to go. And how do we cut it out so that we can fanatically focus on the bits of what we're doing that are working really well, and then point ourselves in that direction. That's going to turn what we're doing now from a small business, and it's very much a small business for now, into what we hope becomes maybe the world's CAD teacher, maybe an education production company. We toy around with both of these ideas a lot. So I think those little 5-10 minute, 20-30 minute interruptions in your day, client calls, return requests that you get from eBay, those little pings of annoyance that you get, right? I think that adds up. And I think the $10 ends up making it not worth it. What do you think?
Interesting. So I would say that just from our brand very specifically, not saying
Maple Leaf Makers, by the way, says Tennessee. Just kidding. They said Tennessee JK. That's good.
That's right.
And then we have Humboldt County from Byron. Byron is in our online program. So thanks for joining.
Oh, fantastic! He's in our state as well,
Jake.
California. So I would argue that I like doing 3D printing because that is where our brand originated, and it's also contributing to who we are. So we are makers at heart, and a lot of the content we produce is specifically about 3D printing, saying, hey, I'm doing my CAD model because I'm going to be 3D printing it. So what are some design tweaks that I could have to print it faster, more efficiently, and actually make something that looks significantly better and will actually work when I assemble it? And when it comes down to 3D printing, for me, I just love it. And the very small distraction that it pulls away from the business is a little bit of a mental break. So anytime that I'm done and I get to walk down to my mailbox and post it in there, I get up out of my desk, walk a little bit of fresh air, resets my brain. And then by the time I come back to my desk, I actually feel a little bit more fresh. In the same way that people that work in cubicles, they're just burnt out. They're going, oh, I'm just so sick of today. Walk up, go to the water cooler, have some water, chill out, go for a smoke, have a cup of coffee. And it's just kind of a mental reset. And then as soon as they come back, then they're feeling even more ready to go. So that's where I'm arguing from.
Yeah, and I think that's actually, it's funny because it's hard to disagree. I think a lot, and I thought, so when I was running the education department of the workshop that he and I met at, I had 30 teachers that worked under me, and probably the most important thing in my mind at all times was, are my teachers satisfied with what they're doing? Are they enjoying their work? Not
Josh was a very good boss, by the way.
Thank you. There's this component it's the people component of all businesses. It's hard to quantify it. It's not found in many metrics, but the satisfaction, the real true satisfaction that people get from the work that they do is, if you don't have that, why are you even doing what you're doing? So it is tough to argue with that. I think I wouldn't want to drive our business to a place where you don't enjoy the day-to-day and I don't enjoy the day-to-day. And it's like we create this monstrosity that's big and quote unquote successful, but that type of success that we find ourselves in is not enjoyable to us. And so we don't put our heart into it in the same way that we otherwise would. So yeah, this is I've already toyed around with this idea this morning as we were talking about this podcast. We had started to have that disagreement and got really excited to talk about it live on here. And I see Iron Arms agrees with me. So there you go, Jake. You're wrong.
Oh god. Okay. Here's a bit of compromise, because I always like a happy medium. So we essentially sell two types of products on our eBay page, which, by the way, does not say CADClass or
you won't find it
or anything. It doesn't have.
We're not even going to tell you what it says.
Yeah, it's our old business name.
Yeah,
that we technically still have licensed. And we sell two things. We sell.
It's a bad name. I came up with the name. It's a bad name.
That's why it's a bad name. We essentially sell two different products, and they're both 3D printed products, I'll have you know. So one side of it has vacuum adapters, where it goes to as many different tools as we could think of. There's about 20 different on there, and they sell very few, very, very few. And on the other side, we have a couple products where there's a little bit of assembly to it, where we're selling little jigs to woodworkers or to metal workers, or little tools, stuff that I've designed for myself, I've used in a workshop, and people go, "That's amazing. Where can I buy one?" And I go, "Right here."
eBay. By the way, can I just say something? I know I keep interrupting you, but I get these things, and this is related to what you're saying.
That's
Jake,
fine.
you're actually a talented, not just a talented maker, but you're an inventor. And like the term
A
inventor has
little.
fallen. The term inventor has fallen out of favor. You actually don't hear people talk about it anymore. I think
No.
maker somewhat supplanted it in ways, right?
In culture, yeah.
It's not really part of the vernacular of most people's discussions now. But
Mhm.
you are truly an inventor, and the product that you're talking about right now is a jig to make segmented bowls on the table saw, and it's an artificial fence, and it
Yeah.
is really cool and nicely designed. We sell them
It's not
still
really cool. It's just
with
very
no advertising. That's my
highly.
point, though. So it solves this problem. It was 3D printed. It's got nuts and bolts and adjustable bits, and it was all designed by you. And you're an inventor. Sorry, keep going. I just wanted to tell you that I think that's awesome, and it's
Well, thank you very much. And from this, so now we essentially have two. So there is some assembly with that type of product it uses. Nuts, bolts, heat set threaded inserts, more components. It has a slightly higher ticket value, but it's vastly more work. It's not just I 3D printed it, I knocked it off, I chucked it in a bag. I get very little joy out of that. And it makes a very small amount of money. But this one over here makes only a little bit more money, maybe only $5 more, but I get so much more joy out of it. I love making things, and I certainly love assembling 3D printed parts. What you guys can't see on camera is just over there is my 3D printed robot arm. That's about, I think it's going to be about like 1.5 meters tall when it's all done and dusted. I'm so excited to actually build it, but I need to learn a little bit more about mechatronics. Um, but I love that, and so I'm pretty comfortable getting rid of the 3D printed vacuum adapters off our eBay just because it brings me no joy. But I
mm,
do want to keep the woodworking jigs and all the other 3D printed assembly projects. It's more work and it's more of a distraction, but I love it. I
there's a
really enjoy it.
side point. There's a
Okay,
side point I think we can make, and that is a point of liability.
that's true as well. Yeah.
There's a monstrous amount of liability with making products that go into equipment,
Mhm.
where the adapters, is there liability there? Nah, I don't really think so. Right?
Not
It's
really.
a dust collection adapter. It plugs on both sides. But with a jig that goes on the table saw, quite a bit of liability. So I look at that and I go, "Yep, it is amazing." And I'm very happy that people that buy it seem to love it, and they
Mhm.
love having it. And it's a very, very, very niche product.
Oh,
You only
so ridiculously
It's
niche.
like, how many people in the world would turn? And then how many people in the world do it with
Do say,
segmented bowls where they first have to cut the pieces on the table saw?
yeah.
It must be a fraction of a percentage.
I think even within the maker community, God knows what percentage that is of actual people that consider themselves makers. I would say that God, maybe 1/10% of makers would actually use this, if that.
Yeah, it's hyper niche. But,
Hyper niche, which I like, which I do like.
it's amazing. Yeah, serving a
The
niche
hyper
audience is really
nicheness of
fun.
it is quite enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of product, I like that product way more. It's obviously
Mhm.
it's not just two circles extruded and connected, right? You didn't just have to use the loft tool. Fun
No, no,
fact.
no. I put work into that design and I
Right.
like it. You
Yeah,
know,
no, it makes a lot of sense. It does make a lot of sense. So, yeah, with
but the
these
liability is definitely an interesting avenue. Yeah.
liability, it just makes me nervous. You make products on those things. I'm thinking now that we are starting to gain quite a bit of traction with CADClass and with some of the 3D printing teaching that we're doing, and then also on the media side. So Jake has been hard at work. I think some of you may have seen this now, but he's an editing machine. So in addition to building these skill sets that we have, he's been editing YouTube Shorts every day. We're making fresh content every single day, trying to respond to the questions that we get asked from our audience. And also, I to your point earlier, and also make things that we find interesting. So we are going
Yeah.
around
If it's
solving
not
little
interesting, we won't
problems.
do it.
Why? Yeah, why would you? And so we're going around solving little problems in our houses and our lives with 3D printed projects and filming short videos about basically the 60-second version of how we made it. I'm having a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. I do enjoy the editing portion.
And
We have
the
about
media
2
side
months
too.
of. Sorry, what was it?
And the media side too. I think
Oh,
this,
yeah.
this stream right here is another great example. Is this looks terrible right now, but we will get better because we're really passionate and interested in chatting with people and really connecting the world with the sort of CAD maker stuff that we talk about. So I think the media side of what we're doing will become a huge part of our business over the next 5, 10 years, in
Definitely,
addition to the education side.
definitely, I agree. I think what excites you about reaching out to different people and talking to them person by person or person to person,
Yeah,
as
in
far
this
from
like in this kind of format here.
specifically for CAD class or teaching people CAD or encouraging them to actually make things from scratch.
I have a great yeah,
When
yeah.
I want to know, because when I came from the teacher's perspective, it was always people are either very excited to get in it to learn woodworking or 3D printing, and they're ready to go and they're giddy, and I love that energy. I can match that energy all day long. Tell you fun facts at the wazoo. But then we also got quite a lot of people who said, "I just want to learn it, whatever. I'm not too giddy about it." And it just saps all the energy out of you, sucks all the wind out of your sails. And especially when it came to CAD, it was those extremes were amplified. People were either saying, I need to learn CAD because I'm designing this mega project and I need to learn CAD and I'm so excited. And this is going to be the first time that I ever see my project in entirety, even virtually. And so you had that group, and then you also had the other group that goes, oh, my work is making me do this.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all they would say. And it's, oh, all right, well, get excited. And they went, no, no. It's and so I want to hear basically from you how you interact with those kind of people, where you would
First, you
where
asked
you
me. So
would
let me answer. I actually like the way you phrased the question the first time. So, what
okay,
excites me about working with the people one on one with CAD? I'll tell you what excites me.
yeah,
I I believe in my heart that anybody in the world can learn to do anything they want
mm,
deeply. CAD is one of those skill sets that it is difficult to acquire. It does take some time to learn it. But once you do take the time to learn it, if you decide that's something you want to learn and it's important for your life in whatever way you deem that to be, once you've learned that technical skill set, I think it signals to your brain, this is a hard thing I just learned. I must be able to learn other hard things too. And it unlocks a whole universe of possibility, not just in making, but I think in your life. So when it's got this nice balance of technical and fun, and also I would call CAD a language. We talk a lot about languages,
yeah.
right? Not it's like communication. Obviously, we've got people from Germany in here, right? So we've got different spoken languages. This I would call CAD the language of three-dimensional communication on a computer.
I really
Computer
dig the way
aided
you've said that in the
design.
past.
Yeah, and
Your
it's
example of saying, have you ever tried to, if you're a maker, you know this very, very innately. Have you ever tried to communicate to someone a design, maybe a 3D printed joint or a box, uh, effectively the first time? And the answer is no. You're never able to do that,
yeah, yeah.
because you essentially do a lot of this with your hands,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
oh yeah, and then on the
You're
back side,
miming.
then I'll
It's
drill a through hole,
the
and in
best
your
you can do is
brain,
to mime.
yeah,
Or then grab a
the
piece of paper. Have you ever tried to interpret somebody's paper drawing?
it's awful, because then they'll
And they
draw
think
multiple
it's so
views
clear.
that look
They're
nothing
like
like each
they're
other.
like, "This is so obvious," right? It's the
Uh-huh.
classic example, if anybody in here has kids where, especially early on in the communication cycle, they're talking, the parents understand them perfectly, but nobody else knows what the hell
Yeah,
they're talking
yeah,
about. This is the same thing, right? So somebody's got an idea in their head and they think they've articulated it perfectly and they haven't even come close. And so you
yeah,
can't communicate with people about your three-dimensional ideas. I would
mhm,
argue unless you're an excellent sketch artist
yeah, definitely.
or you're making 3D models on a computer screen.
Mhm,
So I think I also put it up there with fundamental skill sets. I think it's as fundamental as for kids on a technical standpoint and adults as code in the current world.
mhm,
And I also think, and this may be a controversial opinion, but I actually think that AI will have a very hard time replacing CAD specifically. And the reason I believe that is the
yeah,
same reason that you have difficulty communicating with words to another person what you're trying to do. That translates to the current iteration of AI. And I'll say chat-based AIs, right? So
yeah,
I know there's other AIs, and I think parts of this will catch up. So one example would be if you want an M4 screw that's an inch long, you should be able to just type in M4 screw 1 inch long. But you actually, this brings up another interesting point. You actually have to know something about manufacturing to communicate with a chatbot.
Yeah, that's true.
Because
Yeah.
because then you have the different chamfer sizes, you have the different thread widths, right? You have the different
And
thread styles,
specifications.
you have
Yeah.
the different specifications, and so I predict that AI won't have a big impact on 3D modeling for a very long time. At some point, we'll figure out how, in what ways we can utilize the technology to
Mhm.
enhance making these models. To maybe take the Canva model, for example. Maybe the CAD program of the future just says, well, let's start with templates of things. And
Mhm.
now you can drag and drop templates and move them around. And then you can use a chatbot to communicate changes in templates. Maybe. I'm curious to know. So, that's why. So, the previous question that you had, why I'm interested in CAD, it's because I think it's that fundamental skill of learn. It's a communication. It's a way to communicate with people in 3D.
Mhm.
But B, to segue, and then maybe we'll come back to the first one because I'm curious about yours too. But B, to segue briefly, is do you agree with me that you think AI will not be able to easily replace making CAD models?
Yes, I do agree with that, but people I do say that, in an echo chamber, people said that the same exact thing about just Chat GPT like 5 years ago. They said, yeah, AI exists, but it will never sound human. And then over the last year, it's just been unreal how fast and how realistic things become. So I can say very easily right now, nah, it's never going to be as good.
I wouldn't say
But
never. I
then,
wouldn't say never.
but then in a year's time, I'll be eating my words. So I do like your idea about uh, taking a template and then customizing it in some way, and that does exist to a certain degree. If you go onto Thingiverse and you say, "Oh, here's a project," um, maybe it's your name or some text that's on like a placard that has some interesting design going through it. You're able to actually go into it through some websites like Customio and say, "Oh, change these words out for this, change the size, change the radius here," and it is actually able to go through and generate a new model. Um, that already exists in template form, technically. But I really like what you were saying about just incorporating a small section of it into your project. I think a good example would say if you're working in Fusion and you were building a really, really large assembly project, you don't need to model every single screw, bolt, motor, washer, pulley from scratch. You can just go into the McMaster-Carr library, search up the code, and it pulls it down, inserts it, and it's done. There's nothing else you actually need to do. And it's unlikely, because they have millions of different types of hardware, it's unlikely that there's just a couple people who made all those individual files from scratch. There's no way. All of the dimensions are already set in place, and I'm sure there's just an engine that can make it from scratch.
So
And
maybe,
so I think what will happen is you can make a certain model, and you can leave a bunch of holes that are 4 millimeter, 3.5 millimeter, and it will be able to analyze that and say, okay, well, there's a large chamfer on there. I bet that you want an M3 countersunk bolt, and it just boom adds it in there. That's what I think it would be
or maybe it
incredibly
pops up
helpful.
with a little dialog box. Did you want an M4
Yeah.
bolt? What sorts of materials are you imagining? Or maybe as you drop it into yeah, I could. That's an
Mhm.
interesting. I really like that idea, actually.
Because if I'm thinking two different components with a large hole in the bottom, a skinny hole in the bottom, and then a large counter thing on the top, it's like, well, there's only one thing that can really fit in there. There's only one thing that actually logically makes sense. And so I think that's going to be a really interesting avenue to kind of dive into the AI.
That's
Definitely.
amazing. And so then, so same question for you. So this is a show of tangents, and
Yeah.
hopefully you guys in the chat can tell us why you're here and what you're interested in hearing us talk about.
Mhm.
If this sort of discussion is interesting to you, like we really want all of you to help us shape what it is that this becomes,
Mhm.
because we're passionate about a lot of topics in this domain, but we want to make sure that it's relevant to what you guys have to say. So if you have questions, thoughts, ideas, comments, you want us to talk about some specific topic this time or next time, definitely let us know. Let us know in the Discord. Let us know in this chat. Let us know CADClass.org. Wherever you interact with us, let us know. We'd love to know it. But
Yeah.
in terms of CAD education, what excites you about CAD education? Same question that you asked me for you.
I think the most exciting thing for me is actually the very, very first model that people make. And going back to what I said previously, if it is something that is classically boring, uninteresting, then it is a massive block. As soon as someone gets into it and they make something boring, they're not interested by it. They understand how important it is, but they're uninterested by it. They will progress no further. That's why I think it's actually a negative when people want to learn coding and they just make a display that says "Hello World." That's not very exciting. I would much rather do a very small project that is probably a couple steps more advanced, but I learn a lot more and it kind of pulls me in. That's way more of a fascinating thing to jump into. And so making a project with them where it's actually fairly complex. Like the first project in our book is recreating the Saturn V rocket that took men to the moon. That's something really, really exciting that I found is awesome. And when people make it and they go, "Oh my god, I just made that," and it's like, "Yeah, dude." That is the first kind of addicting point that goes into it. And I would say a secondary point would be when they actually start to make their very first model by themselves, 3D print it, and then it actually works. That's like crack. It is so addictive.
It is.
I can't even remember the first problem that I solved with 3D printing. Actually, no, that's a lie. I do know what it is. I had my laptop and I wanted my phone above, and so I 3D printed just this little holder that grabs onto the top of my laptop, and then had a hook on the underside and some walls, and it just held my phone perfectly. And it took maybe an hour to print, and it worked the first time, and it slotted in place because I measured it with calipers, and I did it, and it worked, and it was phenomenal. It was so much fun. And I think when people do that, when they make their first thing, it is you will then start to analyze everything in your life. You go, "Oh my god, I've been having this tiny little problem that I've just been getting used to." And as soon as they go, "Oh my gosh, I could fix that with 3D printed, I could model that." And then they go, "Okay, well, how would I do it?" "Oh, that's really easy. It's just this block with a little hole that I can put a screw in, and then it's done." It becomes very addictive. You start to notice all the little small things that just kind of bug you, that annoy you. They're not major, they're just little things that you can fix around your house or around your job or in your car, and life just gets better. And it's so much fun.
So you enjoy. I actually really like that because you enjoy helping people understand, empowering people to solve problems. And by the way, the problem, I feel like that's one of the most overused set of words in the whole language. Problem solving.
Yeah,
I can't tell you how many times I hear it, and it just makes me want to cringe
yeah.
because it becomes almost some pie in the sky, like
Ethereal.
it's way out there in the ethereal is the best way to put it. It's this thing that exists like way out there in the nowhere, and teachers
Yeah.
talk about it all the time, and colleges talk about it all the time. It's forced down your throat, and yet I think what you come back to, and I certainly do, is if we're going to have an impact on this world, if we're going to have an impact in our lives, it comes down to solving problems always. And so I love the idea that we're empowering people to solve problems. We do have a question from Todd Phillips, and we're getting near the end. So Todd wants to know something technical. So yes, Todd,
All
we
right.
are taking questions, technical or non-technical. So you said, "Hello, if you guys are taking questions, I am wondering how to select an additional edge to fill it without having to unfill it. Select the additional edge and then
I know
refill."
exactly what you're talking about.
He knows exactly.
So
Get him.
So anytime you're making a project, you want to add a bunch of fillets on there. You can click individual edges or faces or anything like that. That's perfectly fine. But you will find if you want to click multiple edges, you click the first one, you say, "Oh, this wants to be 3 millimeters." It gives you a little preview. And then you try and click the next one. It does not work. That is because you have to hold down Control, which pulls away the preview, and it just shows you the first highlighted edge you clicked. Then you can click all the ones after that. That is, I don't know why it isn't more well known, but it is a problem that I know I had for a little while, and I know a lot of people have, but it's just the Control. It's
So
easy as
just
that,
hold down
actually.
Control and
And
click
then
the
click
next
as
one.
many
Click
edges
the
as
next
you
one.
want,
Click the next one. Click the
type
next
it
one.
in, and you're done.
And you may, and I think it might have been obvious to you. Maybe Todd, I'm not sure if this is obvious to you, but if you click a face and you want to fill it, it will fill it the edges around that face,
Mhm.
right? So
Yep.
sometimes it's best to click an edge, and sometimes it's best to click a face, and that can save you a lot of time. The control thing is quick as well. Yeah, we kind of replaced. By the way, Todd, thanks for asking that question. It's something we didn't talk about yet today. We only have a little bit of time, but we were doing weekly Zooms on Wednesdays. And I don't know if we picked a weird time or what. They weren't very popular, so we just basically exchanged that format for this one. And we figured if people show up, then we get to
Awesome.
have a fun
If they
conversation.
don't,
If they
that's
don't,
great.
Jake and I have these meetings anyway. And we're like, well, why
Yeah.
don't we just chat about what we chat about, what we find interesting, why we're working on things, have some disagreements with the future of where we're headed here, and do that. And then if people come in and they have technical questions, they can come in, ask their questions. Occasionally we'll screen share. You know, there's all kinds of little stuff that we could do where we could help answer questions like that. So this is our first attempt at a new format for interacting with everybody in our community, which, by the way, Jake, it's getting pretty big.
I wouldn't say so.
Pretty big from zero, right? So we started a community
Yeah.
from scratch, and we have a couple thousand people who have downloaded the book, used the book. We've got the 3D print general right now that's working through it live on his Twitter page. It's doing pretty well. We've got Pooch of Repcord.
He's doing really well, by the way.
He's killing it, right? So we've got a guy. So briefly, we have a guy, 3D print general. If you don't know him, he's got some content on YouTube, some good 3D printed stuff.
Fantastic YouTuber.
He's a fun guy. He wrote the blurb on the back of our book, but he's trying to take our entire course in 7 working days. And that is a ton of work he's going through right now. And he's doing a good job. He's on, last I checked, he was done with day 3 or day 4. And
done with day 4, yeah.
He's through 5 or 6.
No,
weeks.
I lied. Yeah, I think he's starting on week 6. He's starting on the assemblies.
So in 7 days, he's going to take himself from not really knowing CAD to becoming a proficient CAD modeler. And I just want to talk without the internet, without our ability to pre-record videos and then put that stuff online, without our ability to share the PDF with the world, without our ability to do all that stuff. Yeah. So Maple Leaf Makers, we wrote the book Mastering Fusion 360. It's on the website, CADClass.org. If you click the book tab, that's the ebook version of it. We also have a physical book on Amazon. So if you go on Amazon and you type in Mastering Fusion 360, we published it now 2 months ago. And I highly suggest that you get both, by the way. So we update the ebook with every bit of feedback that we get once a month, once every other month. And the next year we'll do a version 2 that has, all of the little tiny corrections. This is a volume 1. We spent way too much time writing this volume 1. But we knew when we launched it was going to be hopefully really good, but we knew it wasn't going to be perfect because you never launched something perfectly the first time. So if you do end up picking up a physical copy of the book, make sure that you also grab that ebook. There's a free version on our website. There's a donation-based version on our website as well. What was I lost my train of thought. I was saying something also about the audience. What was I saying? I got distracted.
I would just for anyone that doesn't know, Josh has been awake for about 2 days because he's just taken a very long trip back from Alaska.
I was fishing for 3 days in Alaska, and yesterday morning I woke up at 3:30, and then I flew back last night. I left Alaska at 11:55 p.m. I had a connection flight in Seattle. I was delirious. I'm talking delirious. I was starting to hallucinate in Seattle. Yeah, I was. And then I had 10 minutes. I got here 10 minutes before this live stream started. So if I'm a little off my game, I apologize. But
Byron's asking where
we got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah,
we're in Alaska. I flew into Anchorage, and then you asked me the question, and right now it's escaping me. Homer.
That's fine.
I started in Homer. I started in Homer, and then I was somewhere else in Alaska, and then I had all kinds of. I got the opportunity of a lifetime, basically 2 days before I left. Somebody said I've got a free booked trip. It's all done and ready to roll. And so I took a prop plane out into the middle of nowhere in Alaska, and I was fishing with bears and moose on a river in the middle of nowhere where there are no humans. And I had to be dropped off. And then the plane came and picked us up later. It's crazy. Iron Arms, we will be back again next week. We will be back. We will be better. And again, any of the feedback that you've got is great. We're going to do this once a week. We're going to give this a go for, as long as
we'll keep it kind of organic.
Yep. As long as we're enjoying it, as long as you guys are getting some value out of it, as long as it seems that it's something that's pointing us in the right direction, We're going to continue doing this indefinitely. So every single Wednesday you can tune in at 9:30. I think we're there may be some flex. We may change that. We're going to talk after this to figure out days and times and what works best for who and where. But yeah, we're going to do this again hopefully next week, 9:30, same time. It is the 1 hour mark right now. Jake, do you want to do a sign off? And then we'll get.
I'll do a sign off. Thank you guys very much for joining everyone that's joining from Twitter, Discord, YouTube, everything like that. Really appreciate it. Loving all the love. And we'll catch you guys next week.
Thank you so much. Jake and Josh here, CADClass.org. You guys rock. Thank you.
Adios.
Cheers.